All right, everyone. Well, everyone, thank you for hopping on tonight. My name is Josh Berenson. I'm one of the coaches at Project Hockey, and I am filling in for Danny tonight. And tonight we are with Pete Kamman from Elevated Hockey out in Montana. So I'll hand it over to him and let him do a little introduction. But otherwise, happy to have everyone on tonight, and glad that everyone's been having a good sessions with the Hockey IQ so far. All right, Pete, you should be good to go.
All right, cool. Well, thanks guys and girls. Thanks for signing in here tonight. Before we get started, where's everybody from? Just out of curiosity, where are you guys calling in from, or where do you guys play hockey? Just kind of throw out the states or city or wherever you guys might be.
Boston,
Connecticut, Owatonna, Quebec, Minnesota, Michigan. Nice. You guys are from all over. Mostly hockey areas. Got the chat going here. So cool. Awesome. Well, let me I'll give you a quick introduction of myself. Originally I'm from Minnesota originally. I grew up, was born in Minneapolis area, grew up in the Chicago area and a little bit in California. Played hockey in college at Miami of Ohio, and after school wound up in Montana, and I've been coaching here ever since. And loving what I do. So I appreciate you guys signing on here. It's awesome to see that young hockey players are investing in developing their skills and their hockey IQ, and putting in extra, like Danny always says, putting in the work, do the work. So I love seeing that. So hopefully you guys are getting better from these presentations. And today I'll start sharing screen here. We're going to run through defensive positioning here. Can you guys see that screen all right? Is that all good? All right. So we're gonna talk about defensive concepts today. So as a little bit about me, like I said, from Minnesota, originally grew up in Chicago. I'm the founder and head coach at Elevated Hockey, which is basically camps and clinics, trainings for players from 6 years old to players that are playing in college or beyond college. Do camps and clinics here where I live in Bozeman, Montana, but also around the world and around the U.S. I'm also the associate head coach of Montana State University college hockey team here in Bozeman. I'm also the executive director of Montana Amateur Hockey, and so I kind of run the day-to-day and oversee the growth of hockey in the state of Montana, as well as being the coach in chief. So I work with coaching the coaches, basically trying to grow our game through educating coaches. Additionally, I work a lot of the USA Hockey development camps, both in Montana, in our Northern Plains district in North Dakota, and then work the national camps in New York as well. So for anybody, as you guys get older, I'm sure some of you will be joining us at some of the national camps in the future. Also on the side, do a little bit of scouting. So I work for USHL Central Scouting and the Fairbanks Ice Dogs in the North American League, as well as a couple different multiple tier 3 teams. So move from there. This was a camp that I did not too long ago. The one on the left was in Malaysia. Like I said, I've been very fortunate to coach kids right around your guys' age all over the world, not just in traditional areas like Minnesota or Michigan, but in non-traditional areas across the world. So this one was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And then there's a little shot from last year, our winning the championship, my college team there. But enough about me. Let's get into defensive concepts. So there's a quote that I always remember. A coach told me when I was a kid is that offense wins games, but defense wins championships. So if you can be a defensively sound player, you're going to do a lot more, not only for your own career path or your path in hockey, but for the success of your team. So today we're going to focus on 3 main goals under that umbrella of defensive concepts. So 1, we want to stay between your man and the goal. 2, we're going to defend from the middle out, and I'll explain what that means. And 3, we're going to talk about maintaining proper gap and positioning. Okay, so let's jump into the first one first. Stay between your man and the goal. So the first place, like, simple as that sounds, like stay between the man and the goal. Now notice that I would say the man and not necessarily the puck. We want to make sure that this happens all over the ice in the defensive zone, especially. But the first one we're going to talk about is net front body positioning. So whether you're the defenseman or the center or you're basically trying to block out, use your body to block out the player that's trying to score. So you can see here, this player from the Dallas Stars is maintaining body position, pushing down on the hips of this forward that's trying to get in and score, but making sure that he's between the player and the goal. That's the key, getting between the player and the goal. So if you can think about it, why would you want to do that? If you're on the other side, if he's on the side right here or in front, that puck squirts through, it's a quick little mini break on the net and he's out of position. So we want to maintain net front position in between the person that's about to try to score and the goalie. Now here's the flip side of that. This Ottawa Senators player, you can see he's pushing the defenseman away. He's trying to score on this goal. Same thing, same exact thing. Why would you think that they're trying to push that defenseman away? Well, they're trying to get their own position. They're trying to break that defensive positioning. So this Ranger and this Canuck is gonna want to try to come as soon as the shot's coming to get back and maintain body position between the player and the goal. So these forwards are working to break that positioning. So as a defensive, in your own defensive zone, you can't let that forward break that position by pushing you away from them and getting their own space within the goal. Additionally, one area that in every games are won and lost on the wall, and especially down in the corner. So I talk to my college team a lot about winning puck battles down in the corner. So this one I pulled it's critically important when you're battling in the corners to make sure that defenseman, you can kind of see the nets right here, corners down in this area, that defenseman here is making sure that he's pushing hips and he's putting his body between the net and the man on the puck. So we're pushing down. Now, if he's coming around, he swoops around and tries to steal the puck, this guy has an easy lane to the net. So focus on the hips, because the player's not going to be able to, he might shimmy and move his head and shake all over the place, but controlling the hips, pushing on the hips is going to allow you to maintain your body position between that player in the corner and the net. Okay, sounds simple, but it's a huge thing. A lot of young kids will come in on the side and be even, or even on the other side and battle towards the boards. As soon as that's lost, it's a free shot going into the net. So you've got to maintain that body position between the puck and the man and the net. Okay. So, well, actually, let me go back one more. So there's a third place that's really important of maintaining body position between the man and the net, and that's on the sidewalls, like basically where the hash marks are. I see a lot of young players that'll battle straight in, and that allows the other player to go up the boards or down the boards, either one. We want to maintain the defensive side, meaning between the net and the man again, so that their only option is to go up, not down to the net. So you want to drive that player up away from the net. So second part we're going to talk about today. But actually, before I move on, is there any questions about that concept of always making sure that your body is between the player's hips and the net? You guys are so quiet. Everybody's just listening. Okay, so we'll move on then if there's no questions. So the second part we're going to talk about today is defending from the middle out. So think to yourself, why do we want to defend from the middle out? Well, I would say that the simple answer is that most goals are scored from the middle. You look at this diagram, you go from the crease to the dot, up to the top of the circles and over. This is where the vast majority of goals are scored from the game. So I always tell my players, protect the middle, push them outside, because the flip side is when you're a forward or an attacking, you want to attack the middle. You get into this space, you're more likely to score a goal. So we've got to defend from the inside out. And again, you maintain body position and then start pushing outside of this area. You're gonna help your goaltender out, and you're gonna work with the statistics. Basically, you're gonna limit the chances that the other players are going to have to score. So even more in depth, we talk about danger area, high danger area. In the NHL, on any given year, approximately 59%. So that's 6 out of every 10 goals is scored from right here, right in front of the net. So that's why it's so important that we're making sure that in the defensive zone, we're in this zone and we're pushing players to the outside whenever we can. We're pushing pucks to the outside whenever we can. I'm sure you guys have coaches that tell you to come around the net. Don't pass through this middle area. Don't pass like that. We want to make sure we're coming out the outside of that zone. But we're doing everything we can from the middle out. Additionally, we look at dot lanes. I talk about this might be a little bit higher level, but in the college hockey, we talk about dot lanes where you can draw lanes from this dot up to the neutral zone dot. And we really try to focus on pushing our players, the offending players, to the outside of those dots, where our defense always play inside of those dots. So we just mentioned about why you want to defend from the middle out, because that's the middle is where most of the goals are scored from. So how do you push a player from the middle to the outside? Because once they're on the outside, they have a harder time scoring a goal. So this is an example of some one-on-one body positioning. There's 2 points. Actually, let me pose a question here. I'm thinking about 2 specific points about this defender and what that defender is doing to push this offensive player to the outside. So in the chat, why don't you throw in a thought of maybe what's one thing that's positive that this player is doing to push them to the outside. So take a quick second here and let's see if anybody has any good ideas. It's taking away the middle of the ice, stick positioning, taking space in the middle, putting a stick in the middle of the ice. He's taking away the middle, good stick in the middle. His middle's forcing him to the outside. Yeah. So I think you guys, one of them touched on for sure. The other one, let me see what that last one was. Taking away the middle of the ice. So first, we noticed the stick. Couple of you guys and girls said that one, right? So where's the stick? It's up on the outside. This player is not going to want to try to go through the stick, right? So if this player had the stick facing this direction, it would open up the lane for this player to go out or cut to the middle. So this stick is protecting the middle, which then helps push this player. He's going to want to go that side. So you're sealing the inside lane and telling that player to go to the outside. Secondly, we talk about in the chat, you guys said he's making him go to the outside. Put in the chat again. Now, answer that question. So how is he making him go to the outside? So not just with the stick, but what's something that you notice? How is he pushing him to the outside? Why do you think he's forcing this player to go to the outside? What is he doing that's going to force this player to the outside? Any thoughts? Stick position, body positioning, gradually angling off to the corner, body position. So yeah, so the body position, if you notice, if this player was right here and was lined up directly, shoulder to shoulder with this player, the forward could choose to go right or left, whatever he wants to do. But this player is protecting dot lanes, like I said, and he's shifted about, his left shoulder is almost even with his left shoulder, maybe inside a little bit more. So he's giving him the outside and he's moving his body not directly in line, but into the middle of the ice. So I see a lot of young players that play one-on-ones directly head on with that forward, and then the forward controls where they're going. If you can play a little bit to the inside, cheat to the inside, you'll push that forward to the outside. So it's a huge point. Whether you're a forward or a defenseman, you can cheat to the middle and it'll force that player and push that player to the outside. Okay. Oops. So the other part to that, now you've got good stick position, you've got good body position, protecting the middle of the ice, trying to put that person to the outside. Then you add in gap control. And in the chat, I'm sure most of you, if not everybody, knows what gap control is, but I want to know like what you think gap control is. So tell me in the chat, what is good gap? Tell me what a good gap is. Anybody? There we go. So we got when you're about a stick's length away from the player, 2 sticks length distance, you'd be able to react stick length away. So those are pretty good. So yeah, so a good gap you can see here between these two girls, they're about a stick length away. It's 2-3 feet, something like that. What I tell my players, like if you're cheating to the inside where your shoulder is matching the opposite shoulder of the other player, and if you reach your hand all the way out and your stick all the way out and you're able to tap that shoulder, that's a really good gap, because your stick, you can get stick on puck and make it hard for this offensive player to stick handle around you or get a shot off. Same thing here. You're within a stick's length, so you can challenge and get stick on puck and make it and do like a defensive retrieval and make that force an error by that forward. Now the opposite of that, like a bad gap, I talk about with my college players. If we're giving a bad gap, that offensive player, like if you're not able to poke that puck and if this red player is maybe 2 or 3 feet back, this white player can do whatever he wants. He can take a shot, he can cut to the middle, he can keep gaining speed. So you've got to kind of clog that lane, close that gap so you're getting a little bit closer to each other, and making sure that you're pushing them to the outside. Now this one, look at this one here, the white player, the blue helmet, the red player. What's one thing that maybe this red defenseman could improve on that one-on-one? Any thoughts on that? So put that in the chat real quick. Just a thought of what's something that maybe this red player could do better. I mean, I know we're not seeing the whole play, but what could this defensive player do that might be a little bit better positioning for against this one-on-one? Toe drag and go around him. That's a good one, Nicholas. I like that, Ethan, keeping his stick towards the middle and turning his body to angle the forward. Yeah, so those are good ideas. Attack. So yeah, so I would say, like, it looks like he's doing a poke check and he may have gotten it, but I would say, the boards are on this side. That red defenseman is almost straight on with this D. I would say let's go a foot, 2 feet over to the right, and you're going to force this player that direction out there. And then their stick, if you're putting that towards the middle lane, like we talked about, you're going to force that player to go to the outside. So shift the body position in toward the dot lane, shift the stick in potentially a little bit and load up so you can make that poke check. And if you can't get with a poke check, then that you're going to force that player to go wide, and that's where you can close space into the wall. So yeah, stay more in the middle. That's a good one. So we talk about stick positioning and closing off those interior lanes, and now we're in the zone, and we want to talk about maintaining proper positioning. So there's a different kind of gap when we start talking about defensive positioning. So this kind of, I think everybody on the call kind of recognizes what this shows or would understand this. So you've got your one defenseman on the puck, you've got your center giving support, you've got your other defenseman covering the front of the net, you got your weak side wing kind of covering the center, and you got your strong side wing up high in the support. Now, this is kind of just standard. Every coach might have a little bit different spot where he wants different people, but kind of the standard play, if that first D is going on the puck and that center is coming in second, where the gap on this one comes in is how high or low are some of these players that are not on the puck. So this guy's doing everything we just talked about. He's getting between the man and the puck and the net. He's controlling where that person's going to go because he's trying to put the stick in the lane, push him up the wall, using body positioning to influence where that forward's going to go. Center, then how big of a gap is it from the center to the play? If that center's way over here, he's really not supporting. If that center's coming in closer, we want to make sure that he's not too close unless he's helping getting that puck, like second man on that puck. But that wing and this wing, these two wings, that's where it becomes really important to think, how big is that gap between where the puck battle is going on and where you are on high support. So like this right wing, if he's way up here and that gap is from the other defenseman, and here you're leaving so much room in the middle that you can't come back and help. Same thing here. If this left wing is just sitting high on that D, there's such a big gap that he's not there to go and help. So you got to be aware of closing that gap. His strong side wing's got to drop down a little bit more so he can help support and build, but he can also get in there. That wing here is coming in and clogging the center in case there's a shot up to the point he can put a stick in the lane and block passes. So that's something that when you work with your coaches, you really have to think about not only if you're the gap on the puck, but also the gap when you're away from the puck. And how are you gapping to your teammates, and how is if so that the next play that happens, where are you to react to that? So here's what that kind of looks like in an actual game. This is Team USA versus Team Finland. Finland is the defensive team in the defensive zone. The white team, USA, is on the offense. So you've got strong side D going into the puck. You've got weak side D covering the front of the net. You've got your center gapped in support. So you notice the center's not all the way down here, leaving a huge gap. The center's in the middle there, making sure that you can close this gap here real quick if the puck comes. You've got your strong side D up high, and you've got your weak side D kind of cheating down into the middle because the puck's not on that side. So these guys these players are all looking at creating strong gaps on where the play is coming, not just chasing the puck or going all into one zone. As you guys get more advanced and more like some coaches at higher levels will start cutting this into boxes, so you can start clogging boxes and cutting the ice in half and flooding. But we're not going to talk that today. So from there, we talked about offense wins games, with defense wins championships. So first and foremost, it starts with that body position, closing cutting off the lanes between the player and the net, using your body. And the two tips I like to really focus on with younger players is you're going to be focusing on two things. If the player is facing you eye to eye, you really want to concentrate on looking at that chest, on that sternum. That's the piece between your two rib cages, right in the middle of your chest. So stare at the logo on their jersey, because they're not going to be able to deke you out if you do that. If their back is to you, then I like to have them focus on their hips, because you can start controlling where they're going to go by pushing hips in which direction you want them to go, but basically staying between the man and then the player in the net. Secondly, always defend from the middle out. We talked about how most of the goals are scored from, 60% of the goals are scored from the middle. So make sure you're not giving up space to the middle. Use the proper gap, stick placement, movement to push them to the outside and try to move them outside of the dots whenever you can. And third, proper gap, not only on a one-on-one gap, you're being with it, 2 to 3 feet, about a six length away from that player to make sure you can do everything we just talked about. But you're also, if you don't have the puck, you're reading where are you in relation to your players that are on the puck, so you're not out of the play as it adjusts. So with that, those are three kind of key issues on defensive positioning. Let me come back here. So those are three high level, main concepts of defensive positioning. And I want to now flip it over to you guys. Let me open it first before we start calling on anybody. But what kind of questions do you have regarding defensive positioning? Either stuff that we just went through, stick placement, between the man and the net, gap control. What kind of questions would you have? Or what kind of questions about playing defensively overall would you have? Anybody have a question? You can put it in the chat if you don't want to say it. So many questions. Okay, why don't we say, why don't we switch it then? So, okay, here's our first question. When the defenseman leads him to the outside, should he transition with the player as he is leading him to the corner? The defenseman leads him to the outside. Okay, so Nicholas, why don't you turn your mic on real quick?
Yep.
So explain that to me a little bit. So what do you think?
So whenever the player's like leading him to the outside, should he transition with him um, whenever, whenever like they're both going into the corner and then just pin him, or should we just stay backwards and then like um, and then just pin him as he's going right into the
Yeah.
corner?
So it's a good question, Nicholas. So what I like to teach my players is you want to be able to, as a defenseman, if you're basically talking about like a one-on-one, the forward's coming down the wall, and you're closing gap. If you have good gap and you have an inside position on them, so you're pushing in the middle, and your stick is in a good lane, and you're directing them, so there's really only one way for him to go. You want to be able to I tell my guys to keep skating backwards as you're trying to match speed, and then you don't want to turn if he's already gotten around you, but you want to be able to either connect with a hip check or a shoulder to stop progress, or you're coming in at an angle where you're basically like surfing in, and then pivoting to match speed to come in. So it's a read and react play. There's no set rule of like I should always go for the hip check or I should always transition. Obviously, if he's getting by you, you want to be able to transition with them and turn with them. You never want to turn your back to them, but you turn with them to drive them into the corner and keep that stick in front of them to push them to the side. But um, but being able to transition with that player, like timing wise, so you're turning into him or her and being able to cut through the hands, lift the stick, and steal the puck while maybe throwing a little bit of contact in there is ideal and what you want to be able to do. Does that answer your question? I mean,
Yep.
that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So let's talk about how to cover a 2-on-1 in front of the net. We got a couple of people asking about that. So 2-on-1 in front of the net. So that's like, I mean, that happens all the time. It's offensively, anytime you can create a 2-on-1 anywhere on the ice, that's the goal, really. You can start isolating players that way. So if you're going to be that defenseman, what I like to tell our guys, like if you're coming down the ice and there's two players coming on just you, what you don't want to do is over commit to one. Right. So you want to be able to protect the middle, again, push them to the outside, maintain that positioning, but you have to play as long as you can. It's kind of a timing thing and that's why practicing it is important. But you want to be able to protect the middle so that if you don't want to just go to the guy without the puck because the other person it turns into a breakaway and they can go to the net. Right. You also don't want to just commit to the person with the puck because then the other person's open and they can just slide it over for a scoring chance. So you've got to kind of play the middle while forcing that player with the puck to the outside. And then it's kind of a timing thing where like at the last second, you let the goaltender take the shot. If you can push them out far enough, like out in the middle, you don't want them shooting from the middle of the ice, but you do everything we talked about, push that player with the puck out as far as you can, while preventing an easy pass. And then you have to be able to trust your goaltender to stop that shot. If you can push them to the far enough away and make sure you can lift a stick to that inside player so that pass can't come across. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's something I would recommend you guys, like, I mean, that's hard for me to just diagram and maybe you don't envision it, but I would say that you guys with your coach, that's a great question on the ice to say, hey coach, can you help me, like, where do you want me to like, how do you want me to defend this one, and ask if you can do some drills that would help practice that, because it really is a timing thing of when you make that switch from the puck, playing the middle to that backdoor player. What's a good way to block shots? That's a good one. So teams that block shots, players that block shots are huge at higher levels. Like coaches love players that will just eat pucks, take pucks. So younger players, like around your guys' age, typically a lot of times like that puck starts coming in and I see players like lift a leg, they call it the flamingo, or like turn. But you want to make, like my college players, we turn our hands over. So you're not trying to catch with your palms, or you're turning your hands over. you basically are trying to seal your legs and your arms in together, basically making yourself like a wall. But we want to go straight on, because all your padding's in the front of your body, way more than the back. You're trying to close everything we just talked about. Really, you're trying to be between. If you're between the puck, the man, the shooter, and the net, you're probably in a good position to block a shot. Secondly, if you are maintaining a good gap, that puck is going to hit you in the shins. If you're only a couple feet away, it's not going to have enough time to rise up any higher than that. But basically, you get inside that lane, you make sure your skates are going towards the shooter, so it's going to hit you in the shin pads, and then you basically just you don't want to turn, you don't want to necessarily go down all the time, but you just want to make sure you're creating a big space, like a big wall in front of that shot. But the key for younger players is like you can't be scared of that shot and turn and flinch. You want to be straight on for that shot, so you can, where all your padding that's where the puck's going to hit. This question, I'm a squirt. So this is from Keenan and Corbin. I'm a squirt and I don't know when to hold the line if there's 1 or 3 guys coming out of the defensive zone. So Corbin and Keenan, why don't you turn your mic on and explain that to me? Tell me where you're thinking of.
So, if there's 1 guy coming out, should you hold the line of the defensive zone, or 3 guys coming out? And should you back up, or what?
So you're saying that the team you're playing against you're in their zone, like you guys are trying to score, they get the puck, and they're breaking out against you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's where there's no one answer for that. What I would say is that the best thing that you can do at any level is communicate with your defensive partners. So if they're coming straight at you, like you're on the strong side, you're on the side of the ice that the player has the puck coming at you. If they have full control of that puck and they're coming at you, you should back out, right? You should start coming out, especially if there's a couple of them coming at you. You want to be able to back out. Now, if the puck was maybe wrapped around the boards and that player has their back to you and you're close enough, like they're pretty close, I would then say you could go and pinch and try to take that puck, because they don't have clear possession, they don't have control, so you could probably force a mistake. At the same time, your defensive partner, or if your defensive partner pinches and goes up, that's when you're the weak side D, the puck's on the other side of the ice than where you are. That's where you want to back out right away. So when teams, it's the squirt level especially, players get in trouble, other teams will score goals because both D will pinch at the same time. If one D pinches and goes in, the other D just stays in the middle, and then all of a sudden, if that pinch doesn't work, then the other team goes and you're rushing to get back. So if your defensive partner pinches, you want to make sure you automatically come back, just as a safety, just in case, right? But yeah, really look at how much control that player coming at you with the puck has. If they have full control and they're coming with numbers and speed, pinching is not a good idea. If they're bobbling the puck, their back is to you, they're standing still, that's possibly a good time to think that you could pinch on that defensive line. Does that answer your question? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. It's a good question. Let's see. What's a good drill to practice good positioning? There's almost every drill you do that has any sort of competition in it is going to be good for positioning. Now, defensive positioning on the rush, any skating drill, getting really for players your guys' age, getting very confident and fluid, going from backwards to forwards in both directions, because a lot of players will only turn right. And so then if a player is coming wide on them and they always turn right on them, and then they're giving their back to that player, that's a tough situation. And that's where a lot of defensemen will get beat. So first, I would say really get confident going from backwards to forwards and transitioning, like what I talked about with the question Nicholas had. So you can do that both directions without any problem. Secondly, anytime you could get like an angling drill where you're coming in and the coach has it set up where like your two players are coming and the defenseman has to come up the wall, like gap up and turn towards that player and then angle them into the wall. That's a great one because it forces you to come up to close that gap and then quickly come back with matching speed. Is a good one. And I think a lot of it, as you guys get older, and a lot of it just comes with experience and time on the ice. And so I think a lot of the small area games is really a really good way to practice puck support and positioning of saying, okay, like how do I support my player? How do I push players in small areas to the outside? Like, how do I get my body positioning? So think about if you guys are ever doing any cross ice or small area games or corner battles, you can really that's where you can make sure one, you're getting between the player and the net, but you're using your body in a way and your stick to close lanes and force that forward or that offensive player in the direction that you want. So I think anytime you're playing a game, you can practice those defensive concepts really well. So Chase, why don't you turn on your mic and explain this question to me? Transitions down the full ice on both sides with the dot lanes.
Oh, just when you said a good way for like correct positioning is like a good skating drill and transit and doing good forwards to backwards. It's a drill that we do at practice a lot, and I was just throwing out something to follow along with that.
Oh, okay, awesome. Well, that's good. I'm glad you guys practiced that. That's a good one to make sure you're comfortable, going full length of the ice and turning whichever ways you guys need to with dot lanes. Good stuff. When should centers in the support zone drop down to help the defenseman in the corner? That's a good question, Ethan. So one, I would say to talk to your coach, because a little bit like that kind of depends on what your guys' strategy is in the zone. So your coach might have a good answer for like where he wants you to come, because some coaches will want the center to be a little bit higher. Some will want them really low for the puck battle. Some want it a little higher so they can swing with the breakout. But when should the center support the zone? So I like to say that if the defenseman is on the puck and has clear possession, that center is kind of curling and looking for like an outlet pass. If the other player, like the other team's player, has the puck down in the corner, and that defenseman is it's like a one-on-one battle, he's trying to contain him. That centerman should probably stay a little bit higher and not come all the way down. If the play is like along the boards and your defenseman and the other team's player is like battling for puck possession, it's not really controlled, that's where the center can kind of come lower and start outnumbering. So a lot of it is going to have to do with who has clear possession. If there's no clear possession of the puck and your teammates is kind of battling, that's a good time for the center to come down and help. But remembering everything we talked about, you're coming down to help, but you're still between the puck and your net. You're still maintaining good body position on that player. So if your teammate gets beat, then that you're there as the second line of defense and supporting them. What's the best thing to do while back checking? There's a couple of things. That's a great question. So if you're back checking, I see a lot of players, like one, communication is key. I see young players don't really communicate a lot, but you got to be able to call out who you're grabbing, right? Like that help. Everybody's talking. That helps things a lot. But when you're back checking, one, obviously you're trying to go hard and you're trying to go fast. But what I see a lot of young players do is they back check. We call like, you want to back check with a purpose. So instead of just going hard and just coming back into your zone, you've got to back check with a purpose. So one, you want to back check going towards the middle of the ice, right? So we talk about protecting the middle of the ice. You don't want to back check down the boards necessarily. You want to back check to the middle of the ice, and you want to pick up a player, right? So you don't want to back check just to space to be there. You want to back check to pick up a player that might be getting a scoring opportunity. So if your defense is covering that one player with the puck and your other defense is covering maybe a second player, there's probably going to be a third player. And if you're the first back checker, you're the third player on your team in the zone, you got to look and scan the ice and find out where that open player is and back check into that player, get defensive positioning where you're maybe lifting the stick and getting in front of the player so that you're between them and the net. And then that's a really good back check. Like if you can eliminate a stick and eliminate a player by getting between them and the net, that's a really good thing. So back check with a purpose. Find the player, get in front of that player, block them out. Any other questions, you guys? All right, that looks like it might be wrapping it up here. Well, thank you guys for listening here. I hope if you guys actually, before I let you go, why don't in the chat tell me one thing that we talked about today that maybe made a light bulb go off, or you liked, or was something you didn't know. What was maybe like, if you have one takeaway from the last like 40 minutes we just talked, what's one takeaway that you could take and put into your game that'll make you a better defensive player? Not necessarily a defenseman, but a defensive player. So we see good gap control. 2-on-1 positioning and not overcommitting, maintaining proper gap, stick in the middle. Yeah, closing out middle lanes with the stick, keeping your body between the puck and the net. That's very important. Gap control. Let's see a couple other guys. Back checking with a purpose. I like that we just talked about. That's good. Watching the hips. I like that. The hippies. Holding the zone. Cool. Staying in the middle of the ice, pushing them to the outside, body between the puck and the net. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, if you guys, take whatever whatever your learning point is today, or if there's a couple, hopefully, but my hope is that you took at least one piece of information away from this tonight. And whenever you sit in these, if you can take at least one new idea or new little piece of information and really take that to your on ice and practice it, that's how you guys are going to really develop hockey IQ, and taking the knowledge that you guys are gaining and putting that into practice is a great thing. So thank you guys for listening and asking some awesome questions. That was great, guys and girls. But I think that's all I've got. Do we want to, is there anything else on the agenda for tonight?
No, I think that was an awesome call. Thank you for hopping on, Pete. And if anybody wants to rewatch this will be up on YouTube. So if you want to just catch up on some of the pointers we talked about, that's where it will be. And otherwise, I think hope everyone has a good week, and maybe put a few pucks in the back of the net and prevent a few.
Absolutely. Yeah. Best of luck in games this weekend and in the future. And and if you have any other questions, my email, you can reach or hit me up on Instagram on a DM at Elevated Hockey, or you can shoot me an email at pete@elevatedhockey.com. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that might come up. But best of luck to you guys and girls, and good job putting in the work, like Danny always says.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys. Bye.